Yeah, good evening everyone. So today we'll be constructing a circle in isometric. Now, before you get any circle in isometric, you need to construct the isometric box. And of course, you need to know either the radius or the diameter of the circle. So let's say for example, we have to construct a circle in isometric and the radius of this circle is 40 mm. So radius equal 40 mm. Now what you need to know is that any circle in isometric, it will not look like a regular circle. It will look like an ellipse or oval shape. And that is because of the 30-degree projection from the horizontal, which we will have discussed last week. So it will be sort of oval shape. So you need to fit it within what is called an isometric box. So once you know the radius of the circle, the first thing you do, you go and you construct the isometric box, which we would have done some time ago as well. Now, the length of the isometric box will be equal to the diameter of the circle. So if the radius is 40, the diameter would be what? 80, right? So we need to construct an isometric box of sides 80 mm. So as usual, firstly, you draw this random horizontal line at the bottom to represent the horizontal plane. You identify a point. You identify a point where you want your drawing to start, which will be the lowest point of the drawing. So I would choose there. And then you take your protractor and you mark your 30-degree angle as well as the 90-degree going straight up. So 30 on the right, 30 on the left, and 90 straight up. And then you just take your ruler and you connect to form your isometric axis. Of course, all of these are light lines, right? I'm just deepening it so you could actually see it in the video here, alright? But these here are light lines. Good. So I have there the isometric axis. Now, remember we're trying to get an isometric box. And this box, as we said, would be 80 mm long. So you open your compasses to 80 mm. Or you could simply take the ruler and measure off 80 mm. Either way, doesn't matter. So you open to 80. Come from the lowest point. And you cut on these three axes. And from there on now you slide, because you know where 80 mm would end, right? So take your set squares and your ruler, set it in line here as you normally do when you're sliding, pivot it at the bottom there, and you slide up to where you cut the 80 mm mark. You pull a line, then you come from this side as well and you do the same thing. You pull a line here as well. Then you come from the from this straight line, this vertical line here. You slide and you pull a vertical line going up. Slide and come this side. And you do basically the same thing. So there we have two faces of the isometric box. Do you need the other two sides now? So just like I would have shown you in class, it's just a matter of sliding and getting it done. So align your set squares here again. Slide up to this point. Pull your line. Then set it here in line with this side going up here. Slide. Pull. So you could see here, we have our isometric box formed. Okay, so that's the first step in getting this circle in isometric. Good. So the next step is quite simple. What you need to do, well, of course, these extra pieces, like I told you in class, you could erase them when you're finished, right? You could erase them. So the next step now is quite simple. Each side of this isometric box, you need to identify the midpoint. Midpoint means halfway point then. Well, this one is simple, right? It's 80 mm long, so halfway would be 40. So you don't need to go and bisect it. You just simply open your compasses to 40. Open to 40, which is half. And come from the starting, and you mark off the midpoint of each side. Right? You mark off the midpoint of each side. And you would see why you need to mark off the midpoint in a few. So marking off your midpoints of each side. Very simple. Good. Now, when you're finished marking off the midpoints, the next step is to construct. Now, if you notice, these sides of this isometric box, it's sort of like a parallelogram in that it looks kind of slanted, right? So you will notice there will be two diagonals, a long one and a short one. What you need to do for each side is to draw in the longest diagonal. Of course, light lines. So that's what I'm going to do now. On the left face, I draw in the longest diagonal. On the right face, I draw in the longest diagonal. And on the top face here, I do the same again. So you have something looking like this, sort of like a triangle sort of stuff, right? So the next step now, this is where these midpoints come into play. What you're gonna do, you're gonna connect. It's like you gotta connect a vortex to a midpoint. So you see this top vortex here? You're gonna connect it to this midpoint here. Then this midpoint on top here, you connect to this vortex here. That's for the top face. Okay? Light lines, of course. I'm just drawing it deep so you could see it, right? So that's what you do there. Then you need to do the same thing for the right face and the left face as well. So for the left face, it will be this bottom vortex connecting to this midpoint here. Then this midpoint here to this vortex. And same thing you do on the right face. So that's what I'm going to do here now. You do it for both the right and the left face. Now, the next step is very important. In this step, you'll be identifying the centers of these circles that you're drawing. Alright? So, where these lines that you would have connected the midpoint to the vortex intersects the long diagonal that you would have drawn, put some dots there. That would be the different centers for these isometric circles that you're drawing. By the way, we're not only drawing one isometric circle here. We're drawing three. We're drawing one in the left face, the left plane, one in the right plane, and one in the top plane. So the next step now, that's where your compasses comes in, and you need a very good compass, right? So I'll show you how to do the left face circle. You see this bottom point here, this vortex here, for the left face. You stick the compass point there, and you open to the top midpoint here. Do you see this midpoint on top here? And you scribe like an arc, and that should take you to where the next midpoint is. Alright, you scribe an arc. So let me do that. And it should connect to the other midpoint. And this has to be dark lines because this is the circle that you're trying to get, right? So if you notice here, see I have that's part of the circle. So what I should say at this point is that when constructing an isometric circle, whether it's in the right plane, left plane, or the top plane, you can't get it with one swing of the compass. You have to do it piece by piece or part. So that's the top part we have there. So what we do now is do the opposite. Come from this top point here now, open the compass to this bottom midpoint, and then you scribe and you get the bottom part of the iso circle. So that's what I'm going to do. Place the needle at this top vortex here, open to this bottom midpoint, and I scribe. Now if you notice, I'm not using any labeling. You know, normally we would use labeling like point A, B, C, D. I'm not using any labeling because when you have to draw isometric drawings that involve these circles, circular pieces you call them, you can't label because there will be so many points and so many curves. The labeling will just complicate the drawing. So you have to develop the ability to know which points you have to connect and where you have to put the compass, right? And you would learn that by practicing these drawings. So I have here the bottom part of the curve. So now I need the top piece and this piece way down at the bottom here. And if you notice, it's taking on that oval shape that I was referring to earlier, right? That's because it's skewed up at 30 degrees to the horizontal. So the centers for the other two remaining pieces of the circle, it's simple. It's right where the diagonal and this line connecting the vortex and the midpoint intersects. So that's one center, and here is the other center. So what you do now, it's simple. Stick the compass point at the center here, where they intersect, open to this top midpoint, and simply draw in an arc, and that arc would connect these points. See what's happening here? See what's happening there? Let me just deepen it so you'll see it better. Do you see what's going on there? See, we have the top part. So now we need is the bottom part. So you do the same thing. The same compass opening again. You stick the needle at this bottom intersection here. And just ensure that it opens to the middle point, the midpoint here. And you draw in the bottom arc again. Alright, so let me do that. I gotta tighten this compass. The compass is a bit slack, right? That's why I said you need a really good compass, because if you don't have a good compass, right, you're gonna have some problems. Mine is a bit slack. I gotta find the screwdriver and tighten it, right? So ensure your compasses and so on. The screws, it's tight. Alright, just let me clear up this piece here. Alright, blend it up nicely. So there we have it. There we have it, right? That's an isometric circle of radius 40 mm. And that's drawn in the left plane. So what you guys are going to do for me, follow the same steps and draw it in the right plane and the top plane. And when we do meet for class, we would discuss it further. So do that and let me know. Alright? Good.